massive spoilers for Undertale, Deltarune Chapter 1, Deltarune Chapter 2, like, immediately. Obviously. Get out! Cave story. I biffed it! The year is 2013, specifically May 23rd. A cute game demo pops up on Fangamer with a crude pixel style, quirky dialogue, and gameplay best described as Toho for babies. 1 month later, June 25th, its developer Toby Fox, a small figure from starman.net known for, if anything, some Cucumber Quest tribute songs and edgy Earthbound ROM hacks. He took to Kickstarter asking for $5,000 to turn that demo into something more complete. The next hours would change one man's life forever, set in motion one of the internet's most beloved works, and change the face of gaming as an art form. The Kickstarter began June 25th. The Kickstarter ended June 25th with $51,124 raised, with every stretch goal met, and then some. The year was 2015. Undertale as we know it was released to the world. And it blew up. Critical, commercial, viral phenomenon, mass appeal, sex appeal.
Those words aren't in the Bible.
Merchandising, fan works, the memes, the laughs, the pulp, McDonald's. The intrigue, the tears, the thighs, the fails, the earth-shaking magnitude of Undertale as a personal and communal experience cannot be overstated. A fanbase so enchanted and passionate that 4 years after the fact, a costume representation in Smash Bros. Can generate more hype than a fully playable character from a first-party Nintendo franchise. Other factors were at play, but shush. A flawless, complete package of surreal, endearing, brain-engravingly memorable delight, with only the freshest artificial ingredients and chemicals for the low price of 10 kroner. Okay, forgive the wizard for waxing dramatic. This game is incredibly important, and I need to pay my respects for a game that set me on my current path of game design and video game discussion. I don't know if all of this makes it clear that an Earthbound-inspired RPG with anime filling in the gaps about a quiet kid making weird friends would deeply affect a young spurg, but this game is a non-zero percentage of why I pass for a functional human. And now it's time to repeat. If you haven't played Undertale in both chapters of Deltarune, get out! Sorry, Evan, I'm talking about everything. Honestly, I don't know why I'm bothering. It was so viral that we all basically know what happens. Hole in a hole, murder daffodil, goatmon, skeletor, racist fish, hi, weeaboos, and Justin Bieber. Your experience with the Toby Fox Wet n Wild Jamboree is so incredibly unique and irreplaceable that spoiling brings
dishonor on you! Dishonor on your cow!
Also, subscribe. It's a new channel arc, baby! Trust me, you want my Undertale arc. And the funny button, that's how you get my Undertale arc. Thank you for your consideration. So, what made Undertale special? No! Core to the theme of Undertale is choice and consequence. It's in the marketing, front and center, an RPG where no one has to die. I'm gonna get this out of the way because this take might be hot. Putting Undertale's impact down to choice and consequence is pretty reductive. Other games have done it before, other games have done it after, other games have done it in a bit of a deeper way. Choice in Undertale is not the point, it's a tool. One tool among many to invest the player in the game's characters by implying responsibility. On the surface, the same way any other game would, but Undertale goes a step further, because its characters don't implicate your character for the negative impact of their decisions, they implicate you. Your character is silent, they don't communicate any traits. If NPCs think you're a bad person, there's no intermediary individual to take the blame. That, combined with the game getting uncomfortable with typical RPG violence and visibly guiding you towards pacifism, that's the game washing its hands of anything you decide to do later.
I told you I'd shoot, but you didn't believe me!
And if you're not quite immersed by the end of the ruins because you're slow on the uptake or lack the determination, the game will drop any pretense that you're separate from your character, and the funny flower man reaches beyond space-time to drink your Pepsi and call you a bitch.
Why didn't you believe me?
After that pan-save state callout, you can go one of two ways. One, you're spiting the game for thinking it's smarter than you and continuing to treat it like an RPG, unaware of what punishments await you. Or two, you accept the paradigm the game expects, immersion and personal stake established, letting Toby Fox's transcendent character writing and liberally applied weep for lunacy carry the experience. Meta elements do creep in and take center stage towards the end, because Toby will not rest until the genre is deconstructed to its constituent atoms, and you're either confronted with the rational endpoint of your habits, taken down the emulation rabbit hole, or gently dissociated from Frisk to see everyone but the most innocent getting their happy ending. And the game asks you to leave it be. Don't reset the timeline and let these people live. Undertale is a shining, memorable, and heartbreaking comedy with one of the greatest endings in gaming history, ending by setting a triple-decker chocolate cake in front of a bunch of 8-year-olds and daring them not to eat it. The genocide route is a categorically unpleasant experience, artistically and brilliantly so, for its pinpoint accurate knowledge of how gamers operate and the last-second aversion of gaming's consequence phobia. It brings to sharp relief that the wish for art to last forever is a noble, childish dream, and letting go of the fictional world to let them continue on is portrayed here as far and away the most empathic, moral way to engage with it. And it's that accusatory element that sets Undertale apart from the leagues of meta, fourth-wall breaky games it inspired. One Shot has comparable, more grounded character writing with different goals and pancakes, but you're just any other character working through the plot with a special power of knowing the puzzle solutions. Everhood boils down to asking Undertale, but what if they want to die? Mood, but also not that deep. Immortality sucks. Boy, you are right on time to party with Gilgamesh! But let's not lose track. I want to highlight that word. Accusatory. That push and pull tension between us and our characters. It's the single most distinctive feature of Toby's game writing, more than just commitment to ludonarrative synchronicity, but meta-ludonarrative harmony. More than tying the mechanics into the plot, but the basic interfaces and structures that we use to interact with the medium, twisting through our side of the screen and into the script. All in service of a personal involvement that I haven't experienced before or since, and if you bring up Yoko Taro, I'm gonna yell at you.
Yoko Taro?
Undertale sees the actions we take in its RPG comrades and declares us all monsters for one of the most tried and true game loops. And since the game doesn't force you to participate in that, or have a character your actions filter through, choosing to engage with it doesn't mean you're playing a bad person, you are a bad person. But none of that matters for Burchett on your windshield if these aren't the most endearing and lovable characters I've met in fiction, because everything I've talked about is built upon them and wouldn't mean jack without them. If it were just mid with unreactive characters, there'd be no temptation to disobey Flowey asking us not to reset. The cake would be dry, and frankly, I don't need the extra calories. Local Hyper-Euclidean Entity says Undertale's not exceptional because of choice, but because character writing. Proceeds to ramble about choice for twice the length of a civilized video without one example of character writing. Okay, anonymous NBE horde, do you want me to explain why the delusions of grandeur skeleton Fortnite dancing out the window and the racist fish lady's anime crisis is funny? We all know the jokes here, I can't add to that. Starry Night doesn't benefit with some schmuck from Toronto pointing at it, and the Vitruvian Man doesn't benefit from a third peck, so what hope do I have of enhancing this? Well, I could try.
All comedy is derived from feeling.
The idea for the most compelling game in the world to openly state that it can't be compelling forever is brilliant, but the hard part of that is creating a fleshed out and compelling cast to back it up. The better half of the pacifist route is spent with these psychopaths putting on a tour de force performance, and they do not quit! It's goodbye! I'd give an example, but it'd be every single line. Not only does Undertale foster this love, but it isn't afraid to leverage it to emphasize finality. And all of these extra AUs like Underfell, Biotail, Inktail, Aftertail, Under her. There's just something wrong here to me. A denial of Toby's core thesis that, out of deep admiration, disrespects the work in a core way that I can't help feeling disturbed by. As much as I love that most of these exist, they are the dictionary definition of antithesis. Literally, antithesis. Like something stuck in the brain that stops us from letting go. A missing piece we can't move off of.
Beware the man who speaks in heads.
Undertale's resolution was brilliant.
Entry number 17. Darker, yet darker.
Every element is explained.
Shadows, cutting deeper. Reading negative.
without a single
Have you been looking for me? I have been looking for you. As we have something,
loose end
something you, something you think, you will think very
found in
interesting.
morning.
This is not complete yet. No, it is far from. Thus the other small favor to ask of you. Return in 24 hours. A vacuum between us, you have you. Please send your response. We will approach the transaction. Thank you for wasting too long. After all, you and I, we have both been wasting such a fair on play. To be here finally on the verge of connection is that actually I move forward to raise in a new future we know.
Deltarune, Chapter 1. Yeah, it's easy to forget now that it's on Steam, but this thing came out of fucking nowhere. I'm out here living my best college life. This bastard jumps in through my window, screams, "Happy Halloween, shit ass!" And we're just supposed to not talk about it for a day. Let me set the scene. It downloads itself off of Twitter as a survey program that tips off your goddamn Windows firewall just to spook you a little more, and then it just gets personal. Who are you? What best represents you? What do you taste like? What are the 6 wacky numbers on your social security card? Respectfully, place your answers in this trash can, go through the back rooms ranger school, get chokeslammed into a locker by Barney the Pikasaurus. Deltarune's opening is as masterful as it is simple. An ocean of familiarity, a whole town of friendly faces, living their lives happily to triumphant music, most likely after escaping the underground. You rush through this nostalgic Animal Crossing title screen, excited to see where it all goes, and then that is shattered by... Oh! Your new character! We dive into the dark world for a whole new adventure. It's goofy, it's silly.
Why would there be a moss on the windowsill if you weren't supposed to eat it?
The colors are popping like
Megalovania long penis.
Rosie is an anagram of Azrael. Oh, thanks for the cute reference, Toby. This game puts us through the silliest adventures with the bisexual Light and Brigade.
See, madness is never that far away.
And then what happened here? Things were a little off in town, but returning and looking around at all the new dialogue, Undyne and Althus never met. Papyrus is nowhere to be found. We have these little details about Chris that warrant an entire secondary video essay detailing how the character relations of this game reveal world-building details that make Dark Souls item descriptions feel inorganic. Not a single reference to the last story. There's a bunker full of garbage noise. Sans is... well, Sans. And alright, Azrael is still alive? What happened? Toby, what did you do? It's an alienating thing, returning to town to discover a whole different continuity. Your presumed love and attachment to Undertale is ripped right out from under you to send your mind spinning with questions. I hate to say something as basic as subversion of expectation, but setting up a mostly sequel, letting us stew in that assumption for how long, and popping out of the closet in an entirely different canon? It's a little disorienting, and if there's a better way to drive player intrigue towards those differences, I haven't seen it. Deltarune Chapter 1 is not subtle about its theme, the lack of choice. You cannot decide who you play as, you cannot stand up for yourself, Susie cannot resist the allure of sweet, chalky goodness, and will face consequences with her dentist in Chapter 6. The lack of choice feels at first like a surface-level, shallow, I don't need to work as hard inversion of what Undertale used to such a brilliant effect. That does sound cynical, but I mean it in the best way. It lets Toby's character writing take center stage, using the linear setup to commit harder to a single atmosphere, and if it ended there, I'd be fine with it, because Undertale's use of choice said all there was to be said on the subject. With this choiceless theme in mind, Chapter 1 is wildly enjoyable and hilarious, if shallow without the thought-provoking communications of player psychopathy, because the narrow path isn't much more than the butt of the joke. Almost like you're taking the component parts of the game and shuffling them around.
Oh my goodness!
And fortunately for us, when we reach the end and head to bed, we find that our choicelessness is far from what this game is about.
Stop screaming at 4 in the fucking morning! People are trying to sleep! Chris, this isn't cool, man! I have an exam in the morning! You done? You done violently ripping your heart out?
I'm going to eat that entire fucking pie.
And then he actually did.
This game's about the memes, baby!
Where Chapter 1 is an introduction to this new dynamic, acclimatizing us to the new canon, leaving us hanging to build up intrigue and resistance to an increased atmospheric pressure of Toby Fox wackiness, and setting us up for the pressure washer of comedy that is U5U4EX7YY2E9N
Einstein!
And scrambling my whole brain because the basic route isn't much to think about past playtime. The same rising tension and backhanded world building, the same great character interactions, Death's Holiday, playing up the mystery of the night, Chris being disobedient and problematic. Do you want that video essay on Chris? It's time for subscribe 3, the shilling. Buttons! They're funny! Do it, 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 do it! If I had a nickel for every lesbian furry couple in a Toby Fox game where a plainly dangerous butch with a history of assaulting the player and eating dogs meets a paralyzingly shy El Wee with an extremely traumatic past, a nerdy streak, and parental abandonment, and they have the same horrifically anxious crush on each other, I'd have 2 nickels that I will use to incentivize Toby to give us more of this, because they're both great and it's hilarious that I can describe these games this way. The real good shit comes when we visit the 23rd heir to the Danny DeVito identity and let the man vent.
The fact of the root matter is gotta have it, they'll do have it, really have it. If you haven't, well, you've had it, couldn't hack it, never haven't had, and the haves are very glad it's just the haven't, so they're lacking what they're having. I just need that little you have.
Oh, okay. We see puppet strings, we see Chris yelling. This isn't about lack of player choice. It's still about the memes. But it's also about the relation between player and character. A would-be lens player character suppressed by us, the player. Chris is not an empty husk like Frisk. Undertale deliberately blurred Frisk as the line between world and player to better make its moral stance, enhanced by battles taking place in a first-person perspective. Deltarune combat happens in third-person perspective. We are separate from Chris. They act on the player's behalf, not by virtue of blending and blurring the abilities and motivations like Frisk, but because playing as them is an oppressive act that shuts out their autonomy within the fiction. Chris shoving us out has a concrete reason now. Where it could have been anything in Chapter 1 before we got our reveal, now it's firmly established. We are in some fashion unwanted in Chris's life. The time frame of the soul's presence?
I am not really a math guy.
Extremely recent. When we make our first save, we have to save over Chris. It's impossible to deny that Chris is a character, and they hate us. I think. They're only offered freedom within the commands we give them.
We tell them to say they're okay, their buddies hear the strain in their voice. We tell them to say no, they're not okay, and they scream it. We tell them to interact with the moss, and they eat the moss. We say we'd rather perish than accept Queen's embrace, and they seem a little too eager about it, but then they are a teenager.
Deltarune looks at Ness and asks, "Who were you before the meteor woke you up?" It looks at Noctis Final Fantasy's emo bitch speech while we run him in circles around Prompto, and calls bullshit on the game drawing the line of our control there. Deltarune claims that playing as a character in fiction is an inherently intrusive act. There is a flaw in the model of game characters expressing individuality and being subject to player control, creating a jumbled mess of player whims, curiosities, and boredoms, anathema to the idea of a person with a coherent internal life.
What's that look for?
Toby resolves this conflict by acknowledging it on its face and separating us from the character, creating two entities, us and Chris, recombining them as one entity in control of the other, and noting the power dynamic. It's a deeply grim and psychological horror premise for such an otherwise lighthearted game. But Deltarune doesn't seem content to leave us stewing in the results of this dynamic the way Undertale did with its theme. Undertale relegates its theme of player exhaustiveness to a wink, nod, and structural role. In Deltarune, the characters are using their extra screen time to get much more involved in these themes. Because if we consider Spamton in the post-Neo Aftermath, we see that Susie is worried about Chris. We see connections to Garbage Noise, and Ralsei is...
That rabbit hole is bottomless.
But that's just the Spamton fight. The Peepus route doubles down on it, expanding the soul's influence to encompass Noelle, and it's horrifying to see her act like a Final Fantasy party member judged solely on their actions. It's not as much new information as it is clarifying the stance the story takes about our influence on this world, and how truly terrifying we are in universe. With Deltarune, Toby Fox has only deepened his tinkering with the conventions of games as a form of storytelling, moving from how our actions impact these fictitious worlds into how our mere presence impacts its people, and I think that's a much more compelling theme. The episodic structure builds up this hype, this investment. It lets us stew in these implications, priming us to leap right back in regardless of that morality. If anyone knows how little the internet can help itself with presented with a good mystery, it's Toby. Yeah, that's right, Evan. I know you're dodging spoilers until all 7 chapters are out, and I'm calling you a bitch for missing the best part from 5 years in the past. You missed out, buddy. You're really killing me. There is an infinite wellspring of possibilities, inspiration, and yes, memes to be uncovered by this little dog who is every day hard at work, breaking our medium in half. And heck, when homecoming comes, Chris will finally know who the fuck you are. Toby, please stop composing for Game Freak. They're playing your masterpieces in the same fields I recorded my earlier videos in. I refuse to escape this! Good night, everybody!
I hope you enjoyed all that. This has been a super fun project. The series means a ton to me, and I'd love to hear if it means the same to you guys. I'm looking forward to trying something new in 2024, a weekly series, so you should look forward to that, I know I will. It also means I'll be seeing you again sooner than usual, so until then, we're all together in the dark, baby.